Hello and good day. My name is Teacher JV, and today we're going to talk about caring for patients related to fluid and electrolyte balance. And this is the first session for your concept in FNE. And actually, this is all about foundations of FNE. So we should have a good foundation in order for us to properly understand the concept. Okay? So let's start here. So here we're going to start with your body fluids and electrolytes. So we're going to read this first. It play an important role in maintaining your homeostasis. If we say homeostasis, it is the stable internal environment of the body. So it means it has the ability to maintain a relatively stable internal state that persists despite the changes that is happening outside. Okay? Now, the body fluids are in constant motion, transporting nutrients. Everything that we eat or we put in our mouth, it is transported by the body fluids and electrolytes also. And oxygens to cells and carrying waste products away from the cell. Clear? Okay. So it says here, the majority of the oxygen in the body is transported by the, do you still remember? The hemoglobin. Very good. And hemoglobin is, or which is found in the RBC. Okay, very good. Let's continue here. So what I want you to do is remember this fluid basics. Okay. Fluid movement throughout the body helps maintain body temperature and the cell shape. So whenever we are exposed to extreme heat or maybe extreme cold, our body will respond and have some mechanisms. And the fluid inside us actually helps to regulate our core temperature. Okay? Now, fluids help transport nutrients, gases, and waste products. Um, a while ago, we already talked about this one, but I hope you still remember in relation to your digestive system, the segmentation and peristalsis. There are gastric juices there, right? Or some sort of fluids that's transporting the food all over the body, okay? Or in the digestive organ, and then the nutrients all over the body. Clear? And next here, most of the body's major organs work together to maintain fluid balance. Okay, it's because our major organs, they undergo a lot of metabolism. Okay, and the last one, the amount of fluids gained through intake must equal to the amount of loss. Maybe if you had the chance to have a patient that has fluid balance related problems, they always ask you to monitor the intake and the output. Okay, it is a mandatory rule whenever the patient have this kind of disorder. Okay, we need to see to it that the intake and the output is quite similar. Clear? Now let's move here. So how are we going to check that one? So we have your fluid loss. This one is quite easy to understand. We have two types, your insensible and then your sensible fluid loss. Okay, insensible losses are lost fluids that are immeasurable. So actually, these losses, you cannot see this one. Okay, it's because here on the second row, it says about the skin and the lungs. So you cannot measure. Example, the sweat. We cannot measure our sweat, okay? But we have here approximation of 1000 ml. That is per day, okay? Now, on the other hand, we have your sensible loss. Sensible loss are lost fluids that can be measured or perceived. And it means we can see this one, like urination or during your defecation, the stool, emesis, or drainage. Drainage, this is actually from your wounds. We can measure this losses, okay? And these are actually 1,600 ml per day. Clear? Okay. So actually, in sensible, we have the losses from the evaporation of fluids through the skin. Okay, and it also depends on the body surface of a person. If you're quite small, quite big, you're a kid or an adult. Okay. Now, each day the body gains and loses fluid through several processes, and this depends on the person. If you're actually an active person or you're a dormant person, okay, like active people, they usually go out and they have their energy drink, okay, to replenish the fluids and the electrolytes that they lost during the exercise that they do. So the fluid gains are primarily from our oral intake, while the losses result from the secretion of fluids from the skin, lungs, kidney, at the same time your intestines. Clear with this part? Okay, awesome. Now let's go here. Okay, this is just a quick or this is just a review from your biochemistry class as well as anatomy and maybe nutrition class. Okay, the water and electrolyte content of the body. So the fluids in the body are found in the three basic places. As you can see here in our illustration, the three circles there, they're actually the cells. Okay, and you can see there's ICF, there's ECF, and interstitial space, as well as blood plasma. Okay, so we're going to discuss them one by one. First, let's start with the word ICF. So here, ICF, it means actually within the cell or the intracellular fluid. Clear? Now, as you look closer, the yellow ones is outside the ICF. That is what we term or what we call the extracellular fluids. Okay? Now, the ICF and the ECF must be balanced. Clear? Okay. Now, as you can see, ECF is also in the blood plasma or near the interstitial space. It's because 75% is made from the interstitial fluid, okay? And 25% is from the plasma. And plasma, it is the liquid portion of the blood, okay? Now, let's go to your interstitial space. The interstitial space is within the tissue spaces. Okay? We call this sometimes as your third space. And we can see this one in the cerebrospinal column, pleural cavity, lymph system, joints, and eyes. And they are relatively constant. So are we clear this one? Can we distinguish the difference of ICF, ECF, and interstitial space? Okay, awesome. Now let's move. Okay, electrolytes. So if you say electrolytes, these are substances whose molecules dissociate. Do you still remember dissociate or dissociation in chemistry or biochem? Like the breaking of compound into a simpler constituents, okay? Or split into ions when placed in water. Now, ions are electrically charged particles. We have positive and negative, okay? Now, electrolytes help regulate water distribution. It governs the acid base balance and transmit nerve impulses. And they also contribute to energy generation and blood clotting. And we're going to discuss that one by one. Okay. Now let's go here. Okay. Cations. Whenever you hear this word or you read this word, it's automatic. You know that it is positively charged ions. Okay. And we have here examples of cations. And I want you to remember um, the normal values as well as the functions of this one. Okay. Now let's start with your potassium. So the normal values there 3.5 to 5 megs per liter. Now, what is potassium all about? So it is the main intracellular fluid cation. Okay, I will repeat that one. Main intracellular fluid cation. And what does it do? It regulates the cell excitability. Okay, if we say cell excitability, it's the property of the cell um, to allow in response to stimulation. Okay, so it aside from that, whenever there's a stimulus, potassium is always there. Next, we have your magnesium. Magnesium is 1.5 to 2 max per liter, and it is the leading ICF cation. And it contributes to many enzymatic and metabolic processes, especially in the protein synthesis. Okay, and we all know that this one modifies the nerve impulse transmission as well as the skeletal muscle response. Clear? Lastly, it maintains the cell membrane stability. That's about your magnesium. Now let's go to your sodium. Sodium 135 to 145, and it is the main extra cellular fluid, okay? ECF. Now, the potassium is the main ICF, while sodium is the main ECF. Clear? And it helps govern the normal osmolality of the ECF. And it helps in the maintenance of the acid-base balance, as well as um, activation of the nerve and the muscle cells. And we all know that this is always associated with chloride, right? So sodium and chloride, they influence water distribution in our body. Okay. And the last one is the calcium, 8.5 to 10.5. And whenever you hear this one, also it's always associated in our teeth and our bones, right? And they can be found, fairly distributed in ICF and also in your ECF. So aside from it has something to do with the teeth and the bone, it acts as a major enzymatic activator within the cells, and it aids in your coagulation. Okay, so these are your electrolytes that are positively charged. Clear? Awesome. So let's move here in your anions. Oh, the opposite. These are now your negatively charged anions. Okay. So we have phosphorus as well as your phosphorus has two types. So we have your inorganic phosphorus and your phosphate. Okay. But let's talk about phosphorus in general. So this one, it is the main ICF anion, and it promotes energy storage as well as carbohydrates, protein, and fat metabolism. Now, another thing here, it actually acts in your hydrogen buffer, your phosphate. Now, chloride. We already introduced this one a while ago. Chloride is 95 to 105. So it is the main ECF anion, and it helps also in maintaining the normal ECF osmolality, and it affects the body pH. Okay. Now, this one plays a vital role in maintaining the acid-base balance. And whenever chloride is combined with hydrogen ion, it will produce what? Chloride plus hydrogen ion, it will become, okay, your hydrochloric acid. Very good. And the last one here is your bicarbonate. Okay, this is present in ECF, and it regulates the acid-base balance. Clear? So these are our electrolytes. And what I want you to remember again is the normal values and the functions. Okay? Okay. Now let's go here. Mechanisms controlling fluid and electrolyte movement. So we have the passive transport first. Um, we are all aware of what is the meaning of diffusion and osmosis already. We've learned this one many times. Okay, what I want you to remember in diffusion is the solutes move, while in osmosis, the fluid moves. Okay, claro. Now, let's go here and let's give emphasis with hydrostatic pressure, plasma colloidal pressure, the active transport. You already know this one also, the capillary filtration. Now, in hydrostatic pressure, it is the pressure of any fluid enclosed in a space. Okay? So if there's a pressure, actually, it will allow the fluid to build up. Okay? Now, that is what we call now your hydrostatic pressure. However, we can avoid this hydrostatic pressure with reabsorption. Okay? Prevents too much fluid from leaving the capillaries, okay, no matter how much the hydrostatic pressure is. Now, let's go to your plasma colloidal pressure. Okay, this one is the osmotic or pulling force of the albumin. Okay, now, are you familiar with albumin? Okay, if it's the albumin, it is the main protein that is produced in the liver. Okay, and it has numerous functions, but the most important one is maintaining the intravascular colloid osmotic pressure. Okay, very good. Active transport, whenever you hear active transport, it is associated with ATP, your adenosine triphosphate. Okay, and the last one here, we have your capillary filtration. Okay, no, the word is filtration. It is movement of fluid through capillary walls through your hydrostatic pressure. Okay, awesome. Now let's move here. We have now your fluid types. Okay, you've seen this one. You've seen a lot of this during your exposure to hospitals. Now, fluids in the body generally aren't found in pure forms. That is why we are having IV fluids. Okay? They're usually found in the three types of solution: isotonic, hypotonic, and hypertonic. Okay? I hope you already know the difference between the three or the difference among the three. Okay? So, isotonic IV solutions have the same concentration of solute as the blood plasma. Now, hypotonic, on the other hand, is it has or it have lesser concentration of solute, while hypertonic have greater concentration of solute than the plasma. Okay. Now, normal osmolarity of plasma is 270 to 300 milliosmol. Remember that one. Next, important terms. Okay. We have three important terms here: the osmolarity, osmolality, and tonicity. Okay. What I want you to remember is osmolarity has something to do with volume. Your osmolality has something to do with the mass, while tonicity is the measure of osmotic pressure gradient between two solutions. Okay? Now, what are these solutions? So we're going to talk about these two types of solutions. So we have the colloids and also the crystalloid. Okay. Now, it's easier to distinguish these two. Colloids are actually large molecules. Crystalloids, they contain small particles. Okay? Colloids, what we're going to use is gauge 18, the green one. Crystalloid, it depends on the vein that you're going to use. Okay? Now, let's go here. Let's discuss first your colloids. Now, if we say colloids, we have first your human albumin, the dextrans, the eterified starch, and protein plasma. Okay? So in human albumin, we have 5% albumin as well as your 25% albumin. Okay. The 5% albumin is a solution that is also derived in plasma and is commonly utilized colloid solution. So what is the use of this one? It is actually used to increase the circulating volume and restore protein level conditions, such as if the patient has burns or pancreatitis, plasma loss through your trauma. Okay. Well, the 25% albumin is used together with sodium and water. Okay. It restrict sodium in water restriction to reduce excessive edema. Okay, we're going to talk more about edema on SAS-19. Okay, now the next one here we have your dextran. Dextran we have two types also, the low molecular and the high molecular dextran. Okay, and these are polysaccharides that acts as colloids. Now, what is the use of the low molecular weight dextran or your LMWD? It is actually used to improve the microcirculation of the patient who has peripheral circulation that is poor. Okay, uh, they they contain no electrolytes and are used to treat shock related to vascular volume. Example are burns, hemorrhage, trauma, and surgery. Okay. Now, your high molecular weight dextran or HMWD are used for patient with hypovolemia or hypotension. We're going to talk more about hypovolemia on the next session. Okay. And they are contraindicated in patients with hemorrhagic shock. Okay. While your eterified starch, these solutions are derived from starch and are used to increase intravascular fluid but can interfere with the normal coagulation. Okay. And the last one, your protein plasma fraction is a solution that is also prepared from plasma and like albumin. Okay. So here, what we do here before is that we warm this solution. Um, we warm this one with cloth before we introduce to the patient or we give to the patient. Okay, and this one is very slow infusion. Okay, it's because this will increase circulating volume. That is why it should be slow infusion. Clear? Awesome. The next one here, um, whenever you do this one or you give this one to patient, we should always have your nursing considerations. Okay, so before you give this, you need to take baseline vital signs first. Okay, so before and aside from that, you need to do this one. You assess the allergy history, of course, by checking the chart and also talking with the patient or the patient's relative. Okay, and a while ago, I already said that we should use a large bore needle or the gauge 18. Okay. Document baseline data, monitor the patient's response. Okay. And monitor coagulation indices. Now, here in monitor the patient's response, of course, you need to stay with the patient. Okay. And then take vital signs every 15 minutes. Then, if there is no negative reaction, you can do it by 30 minutes until per hour until everything is okay. But never leave your patient. Clear? Now let's go here. Crystalloids. Here in crystalloids, I will be giving a supplemental notes with this one. Okay, I will be sending to you the types of isotonic, hypertonic. You already know this one. You've learned this in your second years and also in your clinical duties. Okay, so let's go to the next. This one is how are we going to maintain the balance uh, of these electrolytes or fluids inside our body? So many mechanisms in the body work together to maintain, fluid balance. And because one problem can affect the entire fluid maintenance system, it is important to keep all mechanisms in check. So we're going to discuss how are we going to balance this one. Okay. So let's go here. Let's talk first about your kidney. And this one is Anatomy 101. You already know this one. So kidney has nephrons from urine by filtering blood, the rate of which is called the glomerular filtration rate or your GFR. Sounds familiar, right? Okay. Usually leads to the production of 1 to 2 liters of urine per day. Okay. Now, here in the kidney, if the body needs more fluid, the nephron tubules vein retain or reabsorb water or electrolytes. Now, if the body needs less fluid, the tubules absorbs less and causing more fluids and electrolytes to be excreted from our body. Okay, now, kidneys also secrete renin, and renin is an enzyme that activates the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, your RAAS. Sounds familiar? Okay. Next one is aldosterone secreted by the adrenal cortex regulates the sodium and water reabsorption by the kidneys. Okay, now let's go here to the next slide. So we're going to talk about your ADH or your antidiuretic hormone. Okay, here your ADH is produced from your hypothalamus to reduce diuresis and increase water retention if serum osmolality increases or the blood volume decreases. Okay, so it will be produced from your hypothalamus. Now, your RAAS or the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, how does it works? So, if the body deemed that the blood flow decreases, the Jg-A or your juxtaglomerular apparatus will release a cell, okay, in the kidney, and it will secrete the renin. Now, the renin leads to the production of your angiotensin 2, and angiotensin 2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor. Now, angiotensin 2 stimulates the production of your aldosterone. Okay? The aldosterone now regulates the reabsorption of water and what? The sodium. Clear? Okay. Now we have your atrial natriuretic peptide. With this one, this is actually a hormone and it is produced and is stored in the atria of the heart. Okay? And this one it stops the action of your RAAS. Okay? It's because the ANP decreases the blood pressure by causing vasodilation, okay, and reduces fluid volume by increasing excretion of water and sodium. They're quite opposite, okay. And the last one here is we have your thirst. Okay, this one is regulated by the hypothalamus. At the same time, it is stimulated by increase in ECF and drying of the mucous membranes and causes a person to drink fluids which are absorbed by the intestines, move to the bloodstream, and distributed between the compartments. Are we clear? Awesome. So that's the end of the session for your SAS 18. So we're going to continue this one by next time. So thank you for listening.